administration to administration, I like to see
No, he's here because I'm Emily, and I also just moved here about 2 months ago. I go from being completely apathetic and shut out from politics to like really gung-ho, so I'm curious how I'm going to feel in a year from now, but I got into the Green Party last election when I was living in California, and the Green Party office was really close to where I was, and I didn't get to meet her then, but I was really happy to meet her now and feel more confident supporting her, but also talking about her to the public, because I think everything's become more polished, and that's what people worry about. But I am curious to just talk more later about like talking points, and I did a little bit of gathering signatures, and it was really nice to hear people's, just the fact that people were aware of who she was really nice, and aware of the Green Party, or even got some burning supporters to sign, because it's a bigger issue, just having multiple party access. So that was encouraging, but also made me realize that I really want to have more fuel, especially in the foreign policy arena, just to be able to educate people and educate people outside of my demographic, and people that don't listen to Democracy Now! Stuff like that. So.
Excuse me for have to leave, but I will be in touch.
Okay.
I guess nice to meet you all. See you. Take care.
I'm Larissa. I go to UNCA and study journalism and international studies and photography. And I am a journalist. Currently I work at the student newspaper. But yeah, part of the reason why I'm into the Green Party is just because I align with 150% of what they stand for. And also, kind of like what you were saying, the media is like a very they can be incredibly evil, but they can also be incredibly good. And I feel that in this country, the media is genuinely pretty evil. And being in journalism, it's hard to combat that, because there's a lot of people, even on campus, teachers are like, send us your questions via email. We don't want to talk to you in person, even if it's about an event. And journalists have such a bad stigma, and it's like, it's important to reverse that and to give coverage to people who are genuinely provocative in a good way for the public. And I think that covering Jill and also being, also being a strong supporter of the Green Party, it's a really important thing for me at this point in my life, especially realizing just everything that's happening in our country right now. It's just sort of sunk in more so over the past couple years, and it's like to a point where you're like, okay, if you're not going to do anything about it, then you're just surrendering. So that's my way of speaking out, and yeah, that's why I'm here.
And I'm Journey Pfifferling, Green Party delegate. I've been working with the Green Party since 1991, collecting signatures, etc., ballot access. In West Asheville, we had a Buncombe County Green Party that unfortunately was disbanded against my vote. I'm really hoping we can re-energize the Asheville base and have a Buncombe County Green Party eventually again, especially during an election cycle. I did vote for Cynthia McKinney, not Obama, and I wanted to bring up that yes, there are other Greens. It isn't just Ralph Nader. Jill Stein has done an amazing job for ballot access and an amazing job for the Green Party furthering our interest. And the good news is, of course, there are lots of intelligent Green Party members and people who are also running, including my friend Kent P. Mesple, who's a Blackfoot Native American Clean Air Quality Control Inspector from San Jose, California. The reason I highlight him rather than Jill Stein, and they're both great, of course, is because 500 years of stolen land, and it's important to address Native American rights, and who better to address that than a Native American president, ideally. Again, Kent Mesplay, mesplay.org is his website. My name is Journey Pfifferling.
My name is Michael Trudeau. I'm from the Raleigh area, and I first got politicized, at least with the Greens, with the Ralph Nader's campaign in 2000. And then after that, I became highly politicized with the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War and those issues. But it wasn't until basically after Ralph Nader's 2008 independent run where I really started to think, like, we need like, I voted Green and stuff, but I didn't really identify so much as a Green. And it wasn't until after 2008 where I was like, we need a third party. We need an alternative political institution that can challenge the status quo. And I see that as being the Green Party right now. And Jill Stein's campaign is only one aspect of that, but I think it's an important aspect. It can encourage locals to grow, and that's where the real change comes from, is on a local level, but it can encourage us to meet locally, build something locally, challenge power locally, and then that spreads out into something larger.
Well, my name is Wayne Turner. I'm a co-chair of the North Carolina Green Party. Our other co-chair is Stephanie Prostansky in Charlotte. Hope y'all will get the opportunity to meet her at some point. I was a Democrat until 2000. And I watched the Democrats throw the election in Florida, despite what they said about Nader stealing votes. I mean, I watched them do it, and I watched them tolerate the Republicans and all their dirty tricks in Florida, and I just thought, these guys can't do it. They don't have the spine to do it anymore. They're not representing me, and I love to enjoy the Greens. That was it's been 15 years now, and we've struggled in this state over ballot access, but I'm more optimistic now than I have been any time in the last 15 years that people are finally beginning to realize that the Democratic Party will not save them. The Democratic Party cannot save them. And I would like to see us take advantage of that realization to finally put the Greens on the ballot here and begin to actually build this party into a force that that must be reckoned with at the legislative level in North Carolina. So that's my goal here today. So thank you all for speaking. What I'm hearing here is that there are some people that have a few questions about the Green Party, and so I'm going to devote a few minutes to try to answer your questions. If you have a specific question about the Green Party, what it stands for, or why we're here, or what we're doing, please ask me, and I will do my absolute best to give you an answer.
Anyone have questions now?
I guess there didn't seem to be, and I'm not the biggest researcher, but a lot of up-to-date information on Jill or the Greens' foreign policy stance, especially in response to ISIS and everything, and that's what people have been asking me, and when people see the pin, and they're like, what, you know. So I'm just wondering if she has made more recent statements, or if the Green Party has, besides military budget and, you know.
I interviewed her, I guess it was maybe a week or two ago, and we talked a little bit about it. If you give me your email address, I'll email you, like, her talking about.
Perhaps, unfortunately, you have to check like her Facebook for periodic updates on like current events. She doesn't really have a place in her campaign platform where she would address ISIS specifically, but she'll address it in comments or in interviews and stuff like that.
The questions came from just like general people. I had like general people asking her questions, so they asked her directly about ISIS.
Okay, great. Thank
But
you.
he can probably answer it.
No, I mean, part of it's just my lack of.
Well, one thing I would suggest is
digging.
look for the Green Shadow Cabinet.
Oh,
You
yeah.
haven't come across them.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Not recently, so yeah.
Yeah, and Jacob?
I know one thing she said, I think it was on a Democracy Now! Interview, but she would said she's in favor of an arms embargo in the region. So like, if you look like a specific policy.
There are really three components to Jill's comments on foreign policy in the Middle East, and especially the current situation with regards to ISIS in Syria. One is we should be supporting an arms embargo in the Middle East. We should get together with the Russians, the Chinese, the French especially, and say, look, we need to cut off arms to this region, including Israel. That's the Israel part. I'm not sure that, I think that Jill would agree with that, but I can't honestly say.
She has said cut the funding.
She has said cut the funding to Israel. We need to stop the flood of weapons into the region, because the only people that are I mean, it's just a money pot for the arms industry is all it is. The second thing we need to do is we need to tell Turkey to stop allowing ISIS fighters to cross its borders, and we need to tell Turkey to stop buying ISIS oil on the black market. Turkey is a NATO country. There's absolutely no reason why they should be doing this except very narrow self-interest on the part of Erdogan, who is himself a totalitarian. And the third part of that is we need to call out the bad actors in the region, and the biggest bad actor in the region is Saudi Arabia. They are the people that are surreptitiously funding ISIS while claiming to fight them, because ISIS follows Wahhabi Islam, and Wahhabi Islam originated in Saudi Arabia, and they've been exporting it for 30 years. They exported it to Afghanistan, they exported it to Qatar, and ISIS is our creation, but it drinks and feeds at the Saudi Arabian trout, and we should be using our connections to Saudi Arabia to stop this.
And Jill has said all these things. You just have to search for them.
Any more questions? No, I'll be around for a while.
Did you have a question?
Well, more specifically towards the Green Party, it seems that it's just a personal observation, but do you have any numbers as membership and stuff? Is there an actual?
On paper, about 400 people.
In this
Not like
state?
pretty much at all.
In this state?
In the state.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing I'm wondering is that it seems to me that, you know, after the Nader thing and with Obama coming in as being perceived as being very progressive, do you feel that, and then now Bernie kind of carrying that torch, I mean, do you feel that the Green Party has lost a lot of its oxygen, you know, because of this kind of perception of progressivism in the Democratic Party, where they're, because I do think it's more of an impression than a reality. I'm wondering if you have anything to say about that.
I can say that the Green Party, after Ralph Nader's 2000 run, grew significantly.
It grew.
But then in around 2004, when John Kerry came around, it started to dwindle. And then it has kind of dwindled with Obama as, yes, the perceived progressive, but I think now with Jill in 2012, and again, now we're kind of starting to grow again. There is a lot of draw from Sanders, but despite Sanders, for instance, in Jill's campaign right now, she's very far along in earning federal matching funds. So she has almost qualified for federal primary matching funds. We're only in December before the November election, and so despite Sanders, she's way ahead now than she was before. So I think that the Green Party did grow, and then it ebbed, and now maybe it's growing a little bit again.
Okay.
I would also add that the growth of the party on a state-by-state basis is a function of people talking about numbers on voter registration forms. If you talk to a Democrat today, they would say, well, we have 1.2, 1.6 million members. But that's 1.6 million registered Democrats. How many people would register Green if we were on the ballot?
Right.
When the Libertarians, before they got ballot access, they claimed maybe 1,200 members across the state for years. And now they claim 24,000 because 24,000 people have registered as Libertarian.
Right.
So
You can't register as a Green here.
yeah, when you talk about members, if you're not a ballot qualified party, that becomes a function of how a person chooses to self-identify. I think there's a ton of Democrats out there who like to vote Green, but they can't.
So I hear you what you're saying, and I agree with that. I'm also feeling that specifically here in Buncombe County, when the Buncombe County Greens were disbanded, I want to speak about that in connection to what you're saying about the numbers of Greens, because I think it really is important for the Green Party to have a steady flow, especially during election years, of people who are like us right now, involved, talking about the Green Party. Even better here in Buncombe County, if we had an established Buncombe County Green Party. We used to meet, every first Saturday of the month at the Fortune Building, and it was only one time a month, but it was an organized statement that here we are, this is the Green Party. We had an ad in the newspaper that said you can come out, it's open to the public. We need something like that here in Buncombe County specifically, and in general. I think it's one thing to talk about registered Greens and getting ballot access and people who might vote for Green, and that's all well and good. But I think it would be great to also remember the core group of people is very important as representatives, because if there's somebody talking about the Greens and then there's nowhere to follow up locally, then we potentially lose contact with the community. And if you have a representative, then the people who realize one way or another that there's a representative, and ideally a Buncombe County Greens, for example, where we have events where we come out publicly, then people can come to that and they get used to it over time, and then they say, yes, there is a Buncombe County Green, there is a real Green Party. I think even if we don't get ballot access, those representatives, those organized perspectives are very important and help solidify the reality of the Green Party, whether we have ballot access or not. And of course, ballot access is why we're here today, ideally to crank out the 186,000 votes, which in my opinion is illegal according to the Constitution. Every American citizen is supposed to have the right to run for political office if they're of legal age and have no criminal record, and that's very clearly written in the Constitution, but still somehow the state gets their way relative to ballot access, and so we need how many signatures? Can you update us on that if you're ready to move on?
About 90,000.
But
can you say that again?
89,366 verified signatures.
You should.
I have a question. Why for ballot access? I mean, I'm a strategist, so in my mind, it would seem that it would work the opposite way. Like, I would say if I had a Green mayor, then a Green governor, then I would try to get a Green president, because it would be like, I'm making an impact in the community. Like, I'm not gonna give my vote to anybody who's making an impact on my community, because my vote is paid for my, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the person that I'm endorsing, is what they bring to the community. So I'm not sure why it's like that.
So are you asking why are we focusing on the president right now and not a governor? Putting the governor in office?
Or a mayor, or like what I'm saying is, if it wouldn't matter if I'm a Republican or a Democrat. Like, to me, like, it's clear when you look at like the voting, right? Like when you look at the primary elections, they can have 50,000 people registered. They're not participating in the primaries. They're not participating in the voting process. So it doesn't matter to me whether you register, what you register as. What it matters is who you vote for, right? So to me, it would seem that if I had a community where their community was having a good experience with the Green Party on a local level, seeing the politics play out locally, then they would be more apt to vote on a federal level, right?
Well, part of the answer to that question is that ballot access comes first before any other, we're not getting ballot access for Jill Stein. We would be getting ballot access for the Green Party, which could then run Jill Stein as a presidential candidate. So if you wanted to run for governor as a Green, you couldn't do that right now.
Okay.
We would have to get 90,000 signatures just so you could run for governor.
Right, so
and we
you
could also,
needed 90,000, just to clarify, so
yeah.
you needed 90,000 signatures for the from the beginning to get on the ballot, right?
That's right.
So that's what I'm saying, like when I moved here, like I've been here for 3 years, nobody's ever said, hey, let's get these 90,000 signatures, because in 5 years, we're gonna go get a president, in 3, we're gonna be looking for a mayor, in 4, we're gonna be looking for a governor.
We only have a window of like a year and a half to get ballot access, right? And then if we failed to do it in the next cycle, we have another year and a half window.
Well, actually, it's a little longer than that.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, and this has been an ongoing discussion within the state party. How are we going to do it? We have this organization on the ground. We can't run candidates in statewide races because we don't have ballot access. What do? Do we focus on local candidates? Do we give up being a political party and turn into an activist organization, which is what we would be without ballot access? What are we going to do? What's the best way for us to approach this? And we've had both arguments. At this particular point in time, we have chosen to drive for ballot access. If Jill Stein can get 2% of the vote in North Carolina, we're on the ballot. People can register as Greens. People will donate money to our party to allow us to build infrastructure that we desperately need. And we can afford to go out and build these local bases that we need to build up in areas. You could argue that we need to build the local bases first, and that's a legitimate argument.
I was just trying to figure out, was it like legally, because I'm sure you guys have strategies for people who make decisions.
Our purpose is to get the Green Party on the ballot and stay on the ballot for at least one election cycle, to give us time, because we've spent all of our time trying to satisfy this state legal requirement. Mike Munger, who ran for the Libertarian Party in 2008, correctly said that getting ballot access was like having to run a marathon and then being told when you got to the end that the race had started. He managed to overcome that and get 2% of the vote, and he put the Libertarians on the ballot. Since then, their numbers have ballooned. They're running people for state legislative offices. They're getting more people in the local. We had to make there are 2 opposing camps here, and we've chosen to go with the ballot access.
Just one thing to add, sorry. Once you get ballot access, if Jill Stein or a Green governor were to get 2% of the vote, or another statewide, someone else running for a statewide office were to get 2% of the vote, the Green Party stays on the ballot for 4 years. And if you fail to get 2%, you get thrown off the ballot. So.
I just wanted to say, I really wanted to interject the word integral, because it is true that we're focused on ballot access, but it's also important to realize that every little bit helps, and there is such a word as integral, including integral politics. But what I mean by integral is that every little bit helps.
I thought I heard Aisha mention, you addressed one part of her concern, but I thought I heard you say also that why not, if you found a Republican or a Democrat, it didn't matter which party, but someone who represented your values and your interests, why not go with them rather than, Green Party? Didn't you say that?
Well, I was saying, yeah, like why, like for me, or for my community, when I came to Jill's last speech here, I talked to her about Black Lives Matter campaign, and then I put it out on my platform. And for us, for a lot of people that I talked to, they were like, "This is really great. She seems really interesting," But at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a candidate that that speaks to the issues that we're concerned with. And Killer Mike, I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he is he's just endorsed Bernie Sanders. And well, he endorsed him earlier this year. I think I announced it earlier, but I knew this. But now he's out speaking to the Black community. That's the first time that I've seen, like, President Obama didn't even market to us. He never talked to us. So this is really interesting to see that. So there's like with him, he's talking to that community. He's saying, you know, he's addressing those issues. Those issues aren't addressed. It doesn't matter what you vote, like who you registered as. It actually matters where you vote. So a lot of people probably registered as something a long time ago, but they're not active members. They're not that many active members in these parties. They're not active. They're not voting in the primaries. I can look at like local elections. They're not voting in local elections. Like voting is down everywhere. Nobody's voting. Nobody feels like their vote counts. Nobody, you know, it's really. I mean, nobody's voted since.
I hear what you're saying, and we do have a process to deal with that. We will endorse a candidate, and we will go out and physically support a candidate, canvassing, signs, the whole 9 yards. If that candidate agrees to identify as a Green, and that's only effective in North Carolina in nonpartisan races. So if your mayoral race is nonpartisan, and there's a candidate we can get behind that identifies as a Green with a Green values, or agrees that to campaign within the 10 key values that we adhere to, we will endorse that candidate, and we will get out and we will support him. And the other part of what you're saying is we need to be up here talking to your community specifically about what the Greens, what can the Greens do for your community? What can the Greens?
I think that there are a lot of different communities who are not spoken to. So like when we talk about, there's this majority, I can only speak, like I just tell people this all the time, like I'm just Black. Like I don't know, I don't have all those other associations. Like that's what I was born with, so I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in the Black community. I don't get into all of this, whatever, but I know there are other communities that people aren't talking to. So it's like identifying those communities and sticking to those communities. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I can probably come up with 40 million Black people who don't want to pay student loans back. Like it's not rocket science. Like I can take that one issue and just be real with you and say we're all suffering from student loan. You could get on a Facebook and type in hashtag Sally Mae and see 40 million people who have a problem with Sally Mae. Like that's, you know, identifying specific niches of people who aren't getting the access that they need. Because I'm telling you, somebody coming to knock at my door and like, oh, will you vote for such and such? Like I'm gonna say no, because I'm gonna treat you like a Jehovah's Witness. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna take that same perspective. So that's what I don't see in this party.
That leads directly to something that I wanted to ask of the people here, because when we get to talking about ballot access, which we need to do from time to time, we need to understand what issues resonate up here. We will provide you with a material that when people ask you, well, what do you stand for? What do you represent? What are you going to do if you're in power? Why should we put you on the ballot? You have something in your hand physically to give them that addresses that issue. Student debt, low wages, income inequality, water privatization, whatever issue. There's a dozen things up here, just as there are across the entire United States, that people would like to see addressed. And of course, if you go up to them and you ask them for a signature, and they say, well, you know, who the hell are you? And you know, what can you do for us? We want to have material in your hands stating what that is. And so I will get around to asking about those issues specifically.
I just wanted to follow up with what you're saying. I said a minute ago that integral politics is relative. The word integral, specifically grassroots democracy, is one of the 10 key values. I would love to see the Green Party, when we have funds, be able to invest in more flyers and more brochures, in more basic little advertising type gimmicks, t-shirts, something that says gp.org. Of course, if you go to gp.org, you can see the platform, etc. You know, the other thing I mentioned a minute ago is the 10 key values. I always talk about the 10 key values when I talk about the Green Party. because it's a nice umbrella, it's a nice general statement, and then in terms of the specifics, then I say go look at the platform on gp.org, because that will highlight the specifics. I would love it if people were collecting signatures, if we as a Green Party was able to make some flyers, and the flyers would say, you know, gp.org, or, you know, something basic even, or the 10 key values, or a link, you know, gp.org, 10 key values, here's a flyer. You know, that's enough, just a little flyer like that, to be able to pass out when we're collecting signatures. I think that would be amazing if we could afford it. Even if we can't, at least mention gp.org.
I think this is real, okay? It's like, I work with teenagers, I work with young people, like, nobody wants your flyers, they don't want your brochures, they don't want to read. Like, we live it, like, we don't do that anymore. You can look at the statistics from Facebook, and they'll tell you, like, nobody's reading. I'm a blogger, I write, and I was like, it's great, you know, that I can get some views on my website, but what people really are doing is they're interacting with my YouTube. It's free. They're interacting with my Instagram. It's completely free. They're interacting with my Twitter and my Facebook, and it's completely free. So I'm not advocating for like that. What I'm just saying is, like, to win, it's a movement. It's not oh, I'm gonna give you this flyer. Like, everybody in here is really nice and smart, and it's a really good experience for me. We all really educated. But when you go out and put us in the real world, then the numbers lessen. And the people who are interested lessen. Like, they want to feel like they're a part of a winning team. They will vote for death. Like, they will participate in the Hunger Games if it's marketed correctly. Like, I'm just being honest. But that's what I